Can we have one hand up per law enforcement agency, just to see how many different agencies are here? 1, 2, 3. One per agency? That's it? Okay, cool. 1, 2, 3. I count 7 or 8. We're just going to do introductions. Let's see. All right, welcome everyone. So this is our, can you get the presentation going? Sorry, Miguel. This is our first RGV traffic safety training, specifically for law enforcement. It's my first training I've ever done for law enforcement. My name's Egarcia. I guess I should start there. I am a planner with the Rio Grande Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization. I started as a bicycle and pedestrian planner, helping the city of Brownsville build trails, bike lanes, sidewalks, make safety improvements at crosswalks, pedestrian signals, that kind of stuff. But a little bit of history, how many of you had heard of the RGVMPO before? Just no one, right? Okay, beautiful. That's good for me because I get to tell a little history that no one's heard before. But metropolitan planning organizations are federally mandated through infrastructure bills generally. We work under Federal Highway Administration, and that federal funding goes through the Texas Department of Transportation and then to metropolitan planning organizations like ours. In the state of Texas, there's 23 MPOs. But before 2019, the Rio Grande Valley had 3 of them. We had a Brownsville Metropolitan Planning Organization, we had a Harlingen-San Benito MPO, and we had Hidalgo County MPO. But in 2019, the state, the Governor Abbott passed an order to merge those 3 MPOs into one regional organization. And the point of the regional organization is basically to make sure that we, the planning partners, are working with our state agencies and our local government agencies in order to program federal funds. And we're talking about millions of dollars, more than millions, billions, over a 25-year plan, a 10-year plan, and a 4-year plan. So that being said, again, in 2019, we were officially established as the RGVMPO. And ever since then, Mr. Andrew Cannon has been our executive director, and we are now hopefully working more regionally to address our transportation needs. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Cannon for a short, brief welcome.
Real short. How many of you are familiar with safe passing ordinances? Okay, how many are city? Anybody from the city? Which cities? Okay. It may or may not. We made the rounds kicking off an initiative like this similar years ago, where in every city in Cameron And Hidalgo County is supposed to have a safe passing ordinance for cyclists. Less than a 1-ton truck, it's 3 feet of right-of-way that has to be surrendered to a bicycle on the shoulder. 1 ton or greater, it's 6 feet. You cannot turn right in front of a cyclist that's on the shoulder next to you. If there's a bicyclist coming towards you, you cannot turn left in front of them if they're coming the opposite lane. There's things like that. So may give us an opportunity to try to review into that a little bit more, because we have a great number of pedestrian fatalities in the RGV associated with cycling. So that is something that we're trying to work on, and Eva got a grant. This is all done through a grant program that Eva sought through TxDOT, and we were awarded. And part of that is just having workshops similar to this, not to take up your time. You're all busy men and women, and we don't want to have you here longer than needed. But the carrot at the end of the stick for us and for TxDOT is to facilitate giving you helmets and bike lights. And what we hope is that those will be used by your, agencies when you see possibly individuals out that don't have a helmet on that are cycling. First weekend in November, the time changes. So when we have individuals who may be out and they don't have a light, which they're required to have on the front or on the rear of their bicycle, to be able to provide that to them. Because we know we have a lot of people that use cycling as their formal means of transportation, and they may not necessarily be all abreast of whatever the rules and regulations are. They're just worried about getting to work or to school. And that's their paramount worry, and I can appreciate that. I rode a bike to high school almost my entire life, never wore a bicycle helmet. Probably explains a lot. I hit my head a lot. So, but what's the next one? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. The task force.
So I do serve on a statewide task force that TxDOT and the commission asked me to participate in. And as part of that, we'll be coming back, and there will be more to it aside from this, the bicycle helmets, because we're trying to find ways to reach the road to zero or vision zero, to try to cease having fatalities on state highways at least one day. I think it's been since 2008 that we haven't gone fatality free a single day on the roadways. So the commission is working diligently with this. We're working with TxDOT, and we'll be coming back to work with your agencies as the enforcers to whatever may be implemented. And what we're looking at are, we want to stop people and change their behavior. So it may be a dynamic speed limit sign in a neighborhood. I think those work well in some areas. Speed limit's 45, they're doing 53, it's flashing at them. Just to give people, make them attentive of what they're doing. Things like that we want to work on. There's a HERO program that's in San Antonio, Austin, El Paso, which is essentially a truck that just travels the roadway through the region. If people break down, they have necessities, they need a tire, they need gas, they take care of that. So we don't have those guys and ladies blocking the freeway because of an incident of running out of fuel or a flat tire or something. To get them moved out of there, try to help limit any fatalities. So that's the task force that I'm tasked with doing as the executive director, and we're working with 3 or 4 other agencies like ours, as well as a multitude of agencies around the state. And so you'll probably be hearing from us again, is my point. So hopefully with some other initiatives that we'll be able to fund and get taken care of. Next. I don't know how many of these you have for me, so.
No, that's perfectly good. I'm going to go back a little bit just because I didn't show these visuals. But in case, you didn't get a copy of the agenda, which I did post in the front, I wanted to review the agenda. From what I had registered this morning, I had Alamo PD, Brownsville PD, Cameron County Constable. I think I had Precinct 2 and 3. Elsa PD, Hidalgo PD, La Jolla, San Benito, San Juan, and UTRGV. But I did hear about Primera and other communities, so thank you so much for signing in, because we'll be using that for the grant reporting, as Mr. Cannon mentioned. And so with that, that's kind of my introduction, the introduction of the RGVMPO, our welcome by Mr. Cannon. I did share on the agenda some resources, and we'll be reviewing some of those through the training today. But this is the map that I did want to kind of highlight. Our new boundary as the RGVMPO does go into Starr County, Willacy, and all of Hidalgo. I mean, not Willacy. all of Cameron, all of Hidalgo, and some of Star. But Willacy and some of Star is too rural. The population isn't there because we're metropolitan areas. It's based on population. So everything that's outside of our boundaries is managed by the FAR district, Texas Department of Transportation FAR district. They are our state partners. We work very closely with them, and I'm going to be sharing some data that was provided by TxDOT. But you can see these metro areas. This was from before we adopted Starr County, so it is population-based. You see how we had 3 different ones here. But again, that's something that we're doing, this statewide task force. Texas has really bad fatality and serious injury data. And so part of the task force that Mr. Cannon is on, they are discussing and wanting the MPOs to work more closely with those local government agencies and our state partners for this Road to Zero mission. And so now I'd like to review the safety trends and issues of the RGV. How many of you look at safety data? Yeah, so you all are like the detail, like you work with the individuals, right? And you fill out crash reports? Yes, no? Can I get some volunteers to tell me what it is, how you see safety data, specifically traffic safety, in your day-to-day job? Like, do you respond to crashes? Do you respond to emergencies? Crash reports, right. Thank you. So hopefully this kind of gives you an overview of how the state, you all fill out these reports and send them off and call it a day maybe. But they come to the Texas Department of Transportation if they're on state roads, and we just overall collect that data and look at that data. And I know we as planners, transportation planners, we use it for reporting, for presenting, and for hopefully finding some ways to improve safety in our region. This training specifically is for law enforcement, but we do have some more trainings for project managers. Those are engineers and planners that are planning out new infrastructure. And so these are some of the projects, the big projects that we have in the FAR district. They're huge. In our area, you see, US 281, SH 550, the second access, Outer Parkway, all of these, the IBTC, all of these are huge highway projects that are funded and led through the Texas Department of Transportation. But you can kind of see the big state roads are the ones that are highlighted, and I'm sure you're aware, right, the state roads versus the local roads and what's locally managed and maintained. But looking at the state data, you can see here that in 1981, the fatalities were 4,701. And in 1980, that was slightly reduced to 4,400, but we stayed in the 4,000s for a while. And then in the 70s and 80s, we dropped a little bit. And I mean, I say a little bit, but 200 more lives is a lot of lives per year, right? When you think about it as a life. And so now, just last year in 2021, we're back at our 80s fatality numbers, and that's something that federally and statewide they're looking at and they're taking very seriously. So you see here statewide that increase in 2021 fatalities are by 15% compared to 2020, even though they say there was less driving on the roads. The border districts, they tend to increase in fatalities by 46% by 2020. And this is like Laredo area, the El Paso area, and ourselves. So you can kind of see that trend has increased. And we're here now in 2022, and we're going to be tracking this data over time. But basically, we need everyone's help to help reduce these fatalities on our roadways. And so these are the border districts in total, right? And El Paso, Laredo, and FAR. And so you can see FAR, is just at the same level as El Paso often enough. Here they're a little bit lower, but here in 2021 we won, which is not a good thing. And so that increase is another reason why they're funding more of these programs, projects, and looking at what we can do. And there's different, as I think you're aware of, different types of crash types and classification. And so we're going to focus later on bicycle and pedestrian data and statistics, but I wanted to start with like an overview of like how many lives we're losing in other types of crash types. So in the FAR district work zones, the fatalities increase. In the district they decrease, but statewide they increase. And you can see here we still lost 3 lives in 2021 in work zone crash fatalities. So here this is speed related. Speed, 55 individuals, 55 lives lost here for speed related. So we know that that's a problem. That's a bigger problem, right, than the work zones. For DUIs, there's 43 individuals, and so you're seeing that increase. Statewide decrease, border districts increase. And that's a 59% increase in 1 year, so that's pretty significant. For alcohol-related, other alcohol-related, I'm not sure what the difference is, but does anyone know the difference between DUI and alcohol-related fatalities? I don't know either, but I got these goal statistics. So 36 individuals in 2021. So you can kind of see as we go by crash type over crash type, 2021 seemed to be that big year. There was an increase both in the state and in the border. So motorcyclists, here we see 5 individuals. So from year to year, from 2020 to 2021, there was an increase. Since 2018, obviously there has been a decrease, but that's still quite a big jump. So in unrestrained fatalities, no seatbelts, right? Texas's seatbelt usage rate was 89.81% in 2021. Yet I'm not sure what the year before was, but we see an increase both on the state level and on the district level of unrestrained fatalities. And again, it's not 14% on a statewide level, but 56% on a district-wide level. So these are commercial motor vehicles. You again see an increase both on the state level, 22% increase, and then 33% on a district level. And it's just one more life, but these statistics monitored over time kind of have the region looking like we really need to do something about it. And so this is pedestrians and pedal cyclists. I put these lumped in together. I'm sorry. It's probably better if I hold it. So statewide, we see that increase of pedestrian fatalities by 15%, but on a district level, 83%. And bicycle fatalities on a state level, 42%, but on a district level, we're at 200%. And so that, again, may seem like 2 individuals, but this is a huge jump in individuals we're losing that are walking our streets. And so overall, the fatalities, you see here, monthly fatalities are about 10 fatalities, or 131 total. That's an average of 10 fatalities a month. That's pretty significant. I don't know what you all see in your communities, but as a planner who's normally not at the scene of the crime, that's pretty significant. And just May and August alone in 2021 was 16 fatalities. So End the Streak is what this statewide initiative is and what we're going to be discussing and why we're asking for law enforcement to join us in this mission to end the streak from reducing our fatalities, right? The Road to Zero is another campaign that you'll hear often. And so something that the district is doing and that I've started to myself and Miguel actually have started to partake on are these district traffic safety teams. So they're called DTST for short, but it's basically a monthly meeting where we review all the fatal crashes. And so those crash reports that you submit, specifically the fatalities, right, are what we're reviewing every month. And we are basically, our goal is to address issues with opportunities. So this meeting generally is only TxDOT engineers and then 2 of us on the MPO side. But what we do is we address the 3 E's. they're all engineers, so they think like engineers, right? They're like, well, the lighting is there. The curb and gutter was clear. It was daylight. The traffic speed was 40 miles per hour. It wasn't 55 miles per hour. But even 40 miles per hour has shown to be fast enough to create fatalities versus if that speed limit was 30 miles per hour, it might be a serious injury. You know what I mean? So the difference between a serious injury and a fatality is something that I think engineers are looking at. Until I started joining them, they hadn't really thought about education and enforcement, or maybe they said, oh, this person was drinking and that was law enforcement. They were drinking in the middle of the day and law enforcement should have stopped them. They were swerving. Witnesses saw them swerving. And this is all information that goes in your crash report, right? And so the data that you submit regionally, that is being reviewed specifically for fatalities, right? And so we're gonna the education piece we're addressing statewide. I did share an article in the agenda link. TxDOT's initiatives aim to improve safety and reduce fatalities statewide. Oh, that's the one about the traffic safety force. Can you click the link? Let me see. I don't think I opened it. But it's on the 2nd Street. Well, basically that article, it just came out 4 days ago. You might have seen it. It was about how the Texas transportation officials are now campaigning. And maybe you've seen some billboards that are like pedestrians obey traffic laws. Or maybe you've seen I know on my social media, but probably because I follow a lot of cycling pages or something, but it's like wear a light, wear your helmet. And so I think now the district has been investing in this educational piece for the public, using these state safety funds in order to pay for that advertising. And hopefully you've seen, who's seen an advertisement, a sponsorship or a billboard out there? Yeah? I think there's one right by Primera or kind of before La Feria area. And so what can we do, right, enforcement-wise to save a life? These are some slides from those DTST meetings. This is from the July meeting. And so we were looking and comparing calendar year 2017 to 21 to calendar year 18 to 22. And for the same month of July, we are on track for meeting the same number of fatalities. That's not good. We haven't reduced that number month to month, right? We have 6 more months left. Well, now we're in September, so that's 5 more months left. And we don't want to see a repeat of 2020, excuse me. And so you can kind of see there's been a reduction since 2017, 2018, but the road is to 0. And so we do, again, I'm just showing you one of the reports, international for the vehicle, so the model's unknown. It's a 98, the color white, the information we get. I know you use your codes and all that. So these are some things that we look at, and then TxDOT kind of understands, what projects do we have? This is a project number that we had. This was the limits of that project. The scope of the project was a seal coat. This is a second project. The scope of that project was safety improvements. So when was that project done? 2017. This one was in 2016. So looking at it at 2022, we think, well, depending on what those safety improvements are, we as engineers or transportation planners might need to consider going back and addressing some of those safety concerns. Again, these are future projects that we're highlighting, so then we look for opportunities. What's coming on? What's programmed? What's funded? And how can we make improvements that we need here? In this scenario, I believe it was San Benito, and there was a U-turn that turned into a fatality. I don't know if y'all heard that one. I think it was near San Benito, but on the Cameron County roads. And so again, recommended countermeasures, that's part of the discussion. Engineering-wise, education-wise, enforcement-wise, what can we do? Do you have any questions right now before we move on? No? Okay, cool. Let me get over. Perfect. Oh. But I don't think that's, sorry, is that one? Yeah, that's that one. Okay, cool. All right. My bad. I thought I had all the links up. So how many of you have heard of this Texas Highway Safety Plan, Strategic Highway Safety Plan? I don't blame you all at all. This is mostly for transportation officials. But this Texas Strategic Highway Safety Plan, again, is to address these needs. This is a resource that I encourage you all to look through at your own time or to share with your colleagues. You can see that there's several categories here. Distracted driving, intersection safety, impaired driving, old road users, speeding, roadway and lane departures. But we're going to go through the pedestrian safety. And this really has a lot of tools, see the data for annual crashes, more information on the safety plan. But for the pedestrians, the problem is crashes with pedestrians are a concern given that the pedestrians are more likely to sustain fatal and severe injuries compared to vehicle occupants. The pedestrian safety emphasis area encompasses crashes that involve at least one pedestrian and one motor vehicle. Pedestrian crashes accounted for 3,434 fatal crashes, 16%, and 6,815 severe crashes, 7% of all serious crashes, from 2010 to 2016. And 79% of fatal pedestrian crashes occur at nighttime. So this is, again, about pedestrians, but one of the reasons why we purchased or decided to procure bike safety lights with this grant is because the same can be said for cyclists. A lot of the fatalities are occurring at night. And so we're hopeful that with your assistance, the distribution of these bike lights, whether they're cyclists or pedestrians, can help them be more seen at night. We are working with engineers and with city officials to hopefully get where we see severe or more frequent crashes or injuries to make sure that lights are working at those intersections or midway points. But that was one of the reasons why we were looking there. So again, there are a lot of tools here. I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's a lot of information on the data. This I love. It talks about contributing factors. So intersections are 29%, impairment is 24%, distraction is 14%, SVROR, anybody? I was like 8%, old road users 8%, and then speeding again at 9%. So where crashes occur, we do have a website on the RGVMPO map where we have some of that data. And if you're looking for some more localized data for your community, you can reach out to me or Miguel here, but I left my cards in the front. And so I thought this was really interesting. I used to bike to college, as Mr. Cannon used to bike to high school. I used to bike to college for like 3 or 4 years. And my mom was always stressed. She was like, text me when you get there, wherever you go, like, let me know when you get home. Like, she wanted to make sure I got from point A to point B safely. And I always said, Mom, I think they're nice to me because I'm a girl. Like, I think they give me more space. And the data proves that. The data shows on the red side here is these are female fatalities. And you can see men are disproportionately affected by these fatalities of pedestrians. I'm looking at Mr. Cannon. So this is kind of the same for drivers, let fewer females, more males. But I just thought that was an interesting statistic and demographic. But going into these strategies, so strategy number 1 for pedestrian safety is related to improving driver pedestrian safety awareness and behavior, hence the materials to distribute, TxDOT working on their campaign. We're also trying to get the police involved. We have some other materials that we laid out by the sign-in sheet for distribution. But that's the first strategy, and hopefully we're at least addressing it, marginally. The second strategy is to reduce pedestrian crashes on urban arterials and local roadways. So similarly, we're having that project manager safety training, and additionally, we are, at least on the bicycle and pedestrian side, looking at the infrastructure to see where we can make safer intersections and road spaces for pedestrians and cyclists. Strategy number 3 is improving pedestrian visibility at crossing locations. So again, Light is, our utility partners are a huge player in this too. And then hopefully getting pedestrians and cyclists at night to use light when they're out and about, or reflective vests, or non-dark clothing. Number 4 is improve pedestrian networks. A little bit later, I'll kind of review the regional active transportation network and how we're hopefully growing that. But number 5 is improve pedestrian-involved crash reporting. And that's hopefully what I'm going to review some materials with you here today. Number 6, I'll just share, is establish vehicle operating speeds to decrease crash severity. We haven't discussed that on a regional level, to my knowledge. However, number 7, develop strategic pedestrian safety plans tailored to local conditions is something that we're hoping to get another grant for. Mr. Javier Dominguez here, another one of my colleagues, he is to a federal. Thank you. All right, my bad. I'll try not to mess with that piece on the end. But the strategic plan. So there is a Safe Streets for All federal grant that became available through the bipartisan infrastructure law. And that deadline is quickly approaching. I believe it's this week or next week. And we'll be applying for a regional strategic pedestrian safety plan, or just, safety plan in general. So again, I just wanted to share that these items are being addressed. We are looking at the different strategies and hopefully increasing that. When it comes to strategy number 5, they basically want to work to include crash typing in pedestrian crash reporting using the pedestrian crash analysis tool for categories on crash typing. And the definition of pedestrian crashes is fields to the standard. The action plan, add fields to the standard crash report form CR3 to better define pedestrian crashes and provide additional detail on the specifics of each plan. This includes those needed to use the BPCAT and develop law enforcement roll call videos on the need for and uses of pedestrian crash data. So again, this is something that the state is actively going through and developing, and I wanted to just bring that up to our region so that you all are aware of some of the tools that are becoming available and the strategies, so that we as a region can align ourselves with the state. And I say that casually, but really it's the state funding. I believe, how many of you use TxDOT funds for safety? STEP program, I believe, like there's a STEP grant. Yeah, I see a few. Okay, we'll have to get you all some more info on the funding opportunities. Can you make a note? I'll make a note. But basically, there's going to be a lot of funding for programming, for education, for outreach, including for police departments, to address safety needs, and not just for pedestrians, but for all levels of safety. And so again, this is something that we need law enforcement agencies to participate in. This is why we're likely going to be coming back to you maybe once a year, to just kind of highlight what the state is doing and how we as a region are coordinating to work with the state. They want us to gather requirements, identify minimum and desirable data elements, prepare cost estimates, and prioritize elements. So if you or your agency has identified areas where you are constantly being called at, where you constantly see accidents happening, something that, is at your attention because you all are so familiar with your communities and out there every day, we want that information. We want that data. Coordinate with us, because we will work with the transportation officials to hopefully make improvements and program funding for improvements there in the future. And so we want to test with law enforcement and TxDOT staff. We want to update forms, develop a communications plan, and revise training, and then implement it. So again, this is the first kind of kickoff traffic safety training that we've had as a region, but I'm hoping that we get to work more regionally together. Some of the barriers, of course, funding, contracts, standardization of data. That's why the sooner we can work as a region, the better we can standardize that approach, make sure everybody is reporting the same way, with the same codes, or, incorporating information that we can use to better assess the situation on the ground. Since we don't get the information until after, right? A month after the accident has happened and it's gone. So that's basically a little bit about that. Do we have any questions at this point? Go back to the slide. All right, sweet. So how many of you have seen this State of Texas instructions to police for reporting crashes? Any of you? Raise your hands. You've seen it once or twice? I mean, it's 170 pages, so no blame. But there's a really good table of contents here on specifically about, the CR forms as an overview. That's what we're going to go over today. And then I think like most of the basic report information is done really well. But, from your perspective, I imagine there are additional elements when it comes to fatalities, maybe not your everyday vehicle crash or, severe injuries. But when it comes to the fatality report specifically, we want more, we as a region, we with the FAR district, we want more information regarding contributing factors. And so there is a section here, after CMV, sequence of events, and contributing factors. And so this is the section, actually, let me start with the overview. My bad, I shouldn't have gone. I got too excited. How do I go to page 1? Can you type 1 for me, Miguel? Thanks. Perfect. Okay, so let's go to the overview first. Crash reports overview. You get crash reporting training at the beginning of law enforcement, before you become an officer, or? Yeah, let me hear it. I want to hear like other voices. How do you all get trained on the reporting? On the job training? Mostly on the job training, and I assume another officer trains you on how to use it. What information do you get? Help me out. That little form? They kind of walk you through it, right? Do you all agree everyone has their own way of doing it? Everyone has their own way of doing it, right? So that's something I'd like to identify. This is again a general overview on traffic safety training. I wanted to highlight that big picture that we've been discussing the last 30 minutes. But I need to look deeper into these reports to kind of identify how they differ. But again, that basic stuff, this is about, let me just read up here. So it's a vital document used in the collection of crash data. We know that. It's basic information necessary for effective highway and traffic safety efforts at any level of government, local, state, or federal. This data is used to perform problem identification, like we've been discussing, establish goals and performance measures. So we really need law enforcement's help. I'm not sure what role you all play. I know not all cities come in the same shape, the same size, with the same budget. So maybe it's easier for a smaller agency to standardize reporting versus a larger agency to standardize that reporting. But I'm hopefully going to be working more closely with different agencies to also myself get training on what's working, what's not working. But basically this motor vehicle crash reporting, it's the data that we use for traffic engineers, for city planners, developing safe routes. And Melanie and myself, we're programming, at least $7 million next year to bicycle and pedestrian projects. And some of that is based on their data. So if we have only $7 million to give, all of these cities, we have about 40 cities. How do we select the best one? Well, we go where there's the most need. So those reports will populate a bigger need, and then your communities are more likely to get funding if you're populating that need for them through these crash data reports. And so again, this is just something that we use. I want to Scroll over. Again, this is the part, identification and location. We look at this during those fatality meetings. Let me zoom in. This is the information that we also take, and you can see here that injury severity. I know you all have your codes. We take a look at that. It's really sad when you see minors there. I know you all know, I don't need to tell you. But we basically use all of that data. This is that disposition of the injured and killed. Were they taken to a hospital? There is a way to generate how much the community is spending in hospital visits based on these crashes, if we use that data, right? And so if this is filled out, like they're taken to a hospital, and maybe you're aware at the time, and maybe you're not aware until after the fact, because sometimes we see that happen. But there's an economic cost to a lot of these. Charges, damage, this is about, commercial motor vehicles, and this is that factors and conditions section. So this is where, I think there's some additional codes that we could be using. We do look at the weather condition, that light condition. I don't think we get a lot of information on entering roads or roadway type, roadway alignment, but I'm thinking maybe you all aren't aware of the type of roadway. We have a functional classification system where we know it's a residential road, it's a collector road, it's a major thoroughfare. And so those are some informations that we look at a traffic level or at a transportation level. But that narrative and the diagram, heavily used, heavily reviewed. I don't ever get the investigator contact, but these are that code sheet. And so I'm sure you all get a copy of this information, but it's very, very interesting. So Miguel, 178, please. Or Johnny, my bad. That was amazing, really fast. I know you're okay. Right there, 178. Did I mess that up? Oh, it's because it's 170. Maybe it was 140. All right, we'll just scroll through. I know it was down here. It's at the very bottom. All right, sorry, bear with me. I thought about copying and pasting, but I said, no, all the documents are here. All right, here we go. Perfect. Okay, let's zoom out. That's conditional field. So this section here is of the report is designed for the investigating officer to determine which factors or conditions contributed to the crash for each unit. The officer may not have enough evidence to file a traffic charge, but does have enough data to render an opinion as to the contributing factors of the crash. And so again, this is the investigator's opinion. You're going to see that code sheet that we just reviewed. But the unit number, it corresponds with the unit involved. I think you all are aware of that. And then they should classify by priority. That's one of the key things for each unit. So looking per unit, and I have a copy here of the form. What are those contributing factors? So here in this example, that required format is factor 1 is what primarily contributed to the crash. What was a secondary contributor? And then what was an additional contributor? So what are some contributors that you all might think of when reporting when it comes to a crash? Control speed? Fail to yield? What was that? A distraction, perfect, exactly. So let's say a witness saw them on their phone. Maybe that's that's the primary reason, right? They contributed to a factor. Maybe there was debris on the roadway, and that's a secondary factor. So not only were they distracted, but then there was debris on the roadway, and then a potential factor is speed, right? Why are they going 78 miles per hour and it's 70 miles per hour on the road? But here are some of those again forms. I want to cover a lot of materials today, so I don't want to be super boring and dive into each one, but I am going to share these links with everyone who's registered and signed in so that you all can review them on your own time. But you see if traffic control is set to 5 signal light, then factor 1, factor 2, or factor 3 cannot be set to a 16, which is disregard the stop sign or light. If one of the contributing factors for a unit is 60, which is unsafe speed, then another factor should not be 61, which is speeding over the limit, right? Those are just hand in hand. I think that's self-explanatory. Or 22, failed to control speed. So if one of the contributing factors for a unit is 61 speeding, then another factor cannot be unsafe speed or fail to control speed, kind of the same page. So if a contributing factor is used, that same factor should not be used in may have contributed factors. So there's just different sections of that form that you all fill out. But if unit description 3, petacyclist, and then contributing factor 36, failed to yield right away to pedestrian, and 59, pedestrian failed to yield right away to vehicle, these unit descriptions are not allowed in that reporting. And so there's some tips here. And then we'll move on. But factor 1 must be populated before factor 2 may be populated. I guess that's based on your system. And then factor 2 must be populated before factor 3. So contributing factors and conditions in factors must be attributed to the power unit when a unit with towed pusher trailer is involved. I'm wondering if that means the same for cyclists and pedestrians, right? So if the power unit, factor 1, 2, and 3 must be attributed to the power unit, which is the motor vehicle and not the pedestrian or the cyclist. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, do we have any questions on this? I know I thought about going deeper into crash reporting, but since I was not sure what level of training everybody got on their crash reporting, what I might do is send out a survey with some more details on this crash data reporting to kind of see, where are your questions, where are your concerns, like how can we better gauge like your level of training, or how can we better train the officers in crash reporting. I know sometimes videos work, sometimes in person better works. Today we have incentives for you to be here, but we won't always have incentives available for you to be here. But yeah, how many of you are going to at least skim this when you get back? All hands, right? All hands? Everybody's hand is up. Everybody's hand is up. So I mean, really, we can highlight this and kind of, what is it called when they, we can narrow down some of this information into bullet points and highlight some key parts. I know I want to work with our FAR district to determine, what else through these district traffic safety teams, what other information can we use? How else can we best help? But again, we are at the very beginning of working on a regional level to address these safety concerns and to standardize some of our reporting. So hopefully we'll continue seeing each other and year after year and kind of see, hopefully together, some improvements on safety. So with that, let's go back to the slides. I think it's Mentimeter time, actually. Go to the slides? I think so, but I'm just making sure. Sorry, guys. I do a lot of presentations, and it's hard to remember everything. Okay, yeah, we're definitely going to go to Mentimeter. Perfect. All right. Exciting stuff. We'll give you all, after the survey, we'll give you all a 5-10 minute break or something, because I just feel like I'm also needing water. Mentimeter. So if you all can use your phones and go to Mentimeter or menti.com, we're going to pull out a code right now that you can fill out to participate in this survey. Menti.com, MENTI.com. It is a tab, yeah, under that. Okay, the code, I did write it down, is 41482393. So menti.com, the code is 41482393. All right, there you go. So again, last time, menti.com, 41482393. Everybody in? Más o menos? It looks like we got a good crowd. So everybody has a little anonymous icon. We just got a new friend. So let's go. Let's do it. So question number 1, is there a state law prohibiting riding a bicycle or an electric bicycle on sidewalks? Yes or no? Or you're not sure? Ooh, I like this. There's a tie. Almost a tie. Okay, never mind. We're out. No's are winning. I can't tell if everyone's done or not. Do we look good? Looks good, right? We're just going to pretend everyone's done. You have 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right. Oh, wait. Click the right answer here, where it says press enter to show correct. Boom. Should I just click enter? So no is the correct answer. There is no state law prohibiting riding a bicycle or an electric bicycle on sidewalks, and we'll review this after the break. Question number 1, it's anonymous. We don't know who doesn't know. So don't feel intimidated. But are pedestrians allowed to walk on the roadway or in the bike lane? The answers are yes, all the time. No, a pedestrian may not walk along the road or on the roadway if an adjacent sidewalk is provided and is accessible. We only got 3 answers so far, though. Okay, 8, we're jumping. Okay, got 11 people. Last time we had more, so who's slacking? Just kidding. Okay, let's hit enter for the answer. Boom. There's a little bit of a lag here, but correct. Most of you are correct. There is pedestrians are not allowed to walk on the roadway or in a bike lane, and we'll go over it again in more depth. So, next question number 3: when is it allowable for cyclists to take the lane or ride as near as practical to the right curb or edge of the roadway? When the person is passing another vehicle moving in the same direction, if the person is preparing to turn left on an intersection or onto a private road or driveway, when there are, can't read that, something conditions on the roadway, unsafe, thank you, unsafe conditions on the roadway, including bad or moving objects, and then the lane of us. We got it. Somebody else. You have it on your phone. We'll give you a minute for this one. There's a lot of words and answers for you to select. All right. You just have to take a stab at it. There's no tests, no results will not be sent to your chief. It's okay. We're not putting this in the paper. But I think we have a good amount of people already. So let's check it. Oh, wait. Hit enter for me. 4 of you, all of the above. All of the above was the right answer. So all of you are right. Congratulations. It was a trick question. But that's kind of how it is, right, with laws? So when is a crash report required? This is a fill in the blank. We'll just see your answers populate. All right, we got a good couple of answers. When requested, when there's a crash, when it's more than $1,000, when the injury is over 1,000 in damage, when there's an accident, when there's a crash on the roadway, injury or 1,000 or more in damage. Oh, that's interesting. I don't even think I knew that there was the $1,000. So an accident. So apparently, damage over 1,000 is the winning answer here. We'll go over the correct answer in the presentation, but we'll just do a few more. Rate the importance of the following for traffic safety. So you can rate how important engineering is, rate how important education is, or rate how important enforcement is. All of them are 5. Okay, I like that. I'm like, dun 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 dun. I'm like, did everybody, I can't tell who is submitting answers or not. But thank you. We'll give it a couple, I think a lot of people did. So, I mean, everything, education came out at top, enforcement 0.1 less, and engineering 0.8 less. So, all important, we know that. So hopefully we'll work everything together. So this is our last question before I give you a break. Share any ideas you have to improve cyclist and pedestrian safety. And it doesn't have to be general, like education. You can be like, fix something, fix a problem. Railroad crossings can be an issue. Non-working signals can be an issue. Restriping crosswalks can be an idea. More programming with youth or driver education. Just think about it for a minute. All right, I like these. Use roads with bike lanes only. We're gonna talk about that, hopefully. Education and training to all parties. The cyclists on a roadway or vehicle, bike lanes, clear solid lines, equipment and educating drivers, spreading overall safety awareness and education on both cyclists and drivers. I like that. Community outreach, public outreach, less bicycle rentals in cities. I'm going to take that one to some people I know. Designate certain areas, not just to allow them to ride on roadways, and more knowledge on safety, classes for adults and youth. That's a great one. All right, well, thank you all so much for your ideas. We're going to give you a 10-minute break, and then we're going to come back to it and talk about these pedestrian and cyclist laws and regulations. Thank you. Come back at 3:35. Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. We're just going to scroll through here. What are you saying? We're going to get started again. I'm going to open a new. Yeah. No, I'm going to scroll down, but I'm going to show them the overview. It's a separate tab. But I had opened it already. No, it's here. It didn't go anywhere. Okay. So I just wanted to show you the Texas Department of Transportation website. I know these are websites we look at all the time as law enforcement. I'm sure you have other resources that you go to all the time, but this is one that, there's a ton of information for traveling, for crash reports and records, for safety areas and traffic cameras. And so they have different types of stories, must follow the laws. Again, like this is something that's new. They're really pushing it out. You can look at different projects that are happening in your community. There's a performance dashboard for our strategic goals. I say ours, but the transportation officials. And then Texas Clear Lanes is some of like what we were talking about, getting people off of the highway when they have an accident, and things to do. So how to drive Texas. But I really, because this is specific to bicycle, pedestrian, and safety, I wanted to show that there is a Stay Safe tab. And again, I'll email these resources to everyone who's attending. But there's information on the traffic safety campaigns, preparing for severe weather, signs and signals, which I hope to go over with our project managers and our traffic engineers, but driving safety and laws, and then, mailboxes on state highways, which I thought was really interesting. Didn't know that was an issue. And then other, smart work zones, et cetera, et cetera. But going under the bicycle and pedestrian safety, you can see they have different segments specific to them, but we're going to go over those questions that we had. So what traffic laws apply to cyclists and what traffic laws do not? So generally, bikes are entitled to all rights and obligations and all duties of the road that apply to a motor vehicle. Bicycle is a device that a person can ride that is capable of being ridden solely using human power and has 2 tandem wheels. I think this is getting trickier. I am on the statewide Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and we're discussing how to incorporate electric bicycles. The scooters, the motorized scooters is becoming a thing, especially like in central Texas. How many of your communities have scooters? I think there was only one, right, McAllen? Or they're no longer, Edinburgh. It was Edinburgh. And Harlingen has bicycles. I believe those are still pedal, but those bike rentals that you were talking about, because they're looking at expanding that program, that bike rental, I think they only have electric bicycles left. Like the company itself doesn't even make pedal only bikes. And I know I live in Brownsville, and you'll see like these people on International Boulevard going to the Puente. They're just like zooming by 30 miles per hour on the shoulder, the bike lane. And I'm one, impressed, but two, worried for my safety, your safety. Everybody's. And I think that there's a gap in the policies and the regulations for these types of new, semi-new inventions for some of these people. So that's something that I know the Texas Transportation Commission, at least, we're starting to look at. They're looking at a bicycle more than 16 inches in diameter. Children's bikes, kids' bikes, those tend to be 12. That's like the smallest tire size I've seen, for children. So this isn't applicable. Do not give a citation to a child, please. But that electric bicycle, again, here's that definition: equipped, fully operable. And so it has to be fewer than 750 watts. And so this is a certain class that are going to have additional restrictions. But unless a specific statutory right or duty is altered by that code, the Texas Transportation Code, or a right or a duty is applicable to a driver, it cannot by nature apply to a person operating a bicycle, the same laws that apply to an operator of a motor vehicle. So a person operating a bicycle, if moving slower than traffic, shall ride as near as practical to the right curb or edge of the roadway. Now, I know this can be difficult where there's no street cleaning being done. As I used to work for the city of Brownsville, and we would work closely with our street cleaners to to go regularly, or if there was somebody who had an accident or was reporting a lot of debris on the shoulders, on the bike lanes, especially because bike lanes and shoulders are off to the side. A lot of that gets swept under there. And so oftentimes cyclists and pedestrians will get further and further away from the curb if they feel that curb is unsafe, dangerous, may cause a flat on their tire, et cetera, et cetera. So I know that as much as practical, they want them closer to the curb for safety. Mr. Cannon talked about that 3 feet safe passing ordinance. We're trying to get that passed city by city. I know a lot of cities already have it. I have a list somewhere, but I forgot to pull it up, of which cities have that safe passing ordinance and which don't, since it's not a statewide law. But because of that, a lot of your communities may have that 3 foot safe passing. If you see a motor vehicle driving 2 feet from a cyclist or a pedestrian, that can warrant a charge or a citation or a warning, just to be safer and give them some space. So that's typically that. I don't often see bicycles operating quicker than motor vehicles unless there's a stop sign involved. But you shall only ride alone or astride in a permanent or regular seat attached to a bicycle. That means, none of the side carriers or some like really creative, I love tandem bikes, but that is a seat. So it's just a little bit more dangerous if you see someone riding tandem. That means 2 bicycles are attached to one bike because they're trickier to turn and maneuver. But overall, bicyclists must use hand signals. I think this is something that's not really educated a lot. I know I use my hand signals, but I was bicycling on International one day, and I was going towards Southmost. And so you may or may not be familiar with Brownsville, but it's 2 major thoroughfares, state roads. I'm in a designated bike lane. There's signs and there's markings on that shoulder. I'm wearing white. I have my white and my red lights, reflectors. And I was going straight. I was not turning, but there's a lot of side roads off International. And so this car decides to turn right and didn't have their blinker on. I was going straight, so I wasn't using my hand signals. And so luckily, I'm paying enough attention to turn my wheel over as they force me to turn right? Because I was planning to go straight. So when I do that, there's like this much space between the curb and the car, and I fit my wheel perfectly right here in the little spot, but my thigh just cleaned that dirt off of that car, and I like slow motion fall to the driveway, and I fall, like on the cement and on the gravel. And that car was pulling over to that building that was there on that corner. There just so happened to be a police unit a couple cars back. And so he had somebody in his unit already that he was taking to jail, I guess. But he pulled over and he forced that motorist to stop while he called backup. And that person, the backup came and they came to talk to me and they said, you need to be careful. There's lots of cars and it's traffic and all this stuff. And I was like, hey, espérate. I'm wearing white. I have my lights. I'm in a designated space. The only reason why you're not calling an ambulance right now is because I'm paying attention. That motor vehicle didn't use their signal. They weren't paying attention. I was in a designated bike lane, and they didn't wait for me to go straight because I didn't have my hand signals. I'm like, bro, I know the Texas Transportation Code, okay? Te calmas. And, I just feel like that really worked. That I remember that officer's eyes just kind of lit up like, oh, you're right. And he went to go talk to the motorist and said, you need to be careful. They're vulnerable users. I feel like I fed what he needed to say to the motorist, but it was very eye-opening to me that cyclists and pedestrians, even if they're not at fault and they're doing everything by the rules, can still be, unfortunately blamed or become the person that was on the road when they should be on a trail, right? And don't get me wrong, like we all want designated bike lanes and we want them to be protected and stuff like that. But ultimately, I feel I wanted to say this because I wasn't using my hand signals. I know my hand signals. I know how to lead social rides And this is something that I think we can do better at educating when we talk about outreach events, when we talk about talking to schools or to youths, or when we do see cyclists and pedestrians on the roadways. Maybe they're doing something that they shouldn't be. I know a lot of people don't cross at intersections, or they're not using their hand signals when they're turning. But I just wanted to, I think storytelling is very a compelling way to like get the point across, right? So I think you can envision that when you're out on the road. And so every bike must be equipped with a brake capable of making a braked wheel skid on dry, level, clean pavement. When I do help with National Night Outs, I volunteer a lot. And so we do the ABCs. Air, check your brakes, check your chain. And that brake check is what this is talking about. You have those cruiser bikes that can brake when they reverse pedal, right? Or you have a lot of the mountain bikes and the road bikes that have those hand brakes, one for the left and one for the rear and one for the front. And so as long as one of those brakes work, if it's not reverse brake, if it's not a right hand brake or a rear brake, it should be able to stop the vehicle. That's really the way to check. Stop the vehicle, stop the bicycle. That's really the way to check. So the headlamp, that's that white one. They want to see it for at least 500 feet. And then that red reflector or red lamp, that's, again, 300 feet from the rear of the bicycle or 500 feet for a red lamp. But that's, I don't have any of these boxes open, but hopefully these lights we're giving you, they have a set, a red one and a white one. So, and then they also have information about bike laws on the packaging. So when you're out, you can distribute these along your other officers. But when you see people, especially at night, hand them those bike lights. This could be like that first initial warning, that first contact with a cyclist or pedestrian. And hopefully after that, they have the tools that they need to get that. And it's something that I haven't talked about, but oftentimes people are not choosing to walk and bike. I know we have a lot of recreational cyclists, but like we mentioned, a lot of people do walk, bike, or commute by bus because they can't afford to. So if they can't afford a vehicle, maybe they can't afford lights or they can't afford that helmet. There is no law requiring helmets. It's a safety issue. If you see someone without a helmet, you can offer them one, but it's not legally a requirement. I actually have read statistics where it's more dangerous to walk for head injuries than it is to ride a bike. So, and obviously the same for driving, you're more likely to get a head injury driving than you are riding a bicycle, but yet it's the cycling. And I think for road cyclists that are doing 50 miles, 100 miles, okay, please wear a helmet. You're going on rural roads that are 60 miles per hour and maybe very, very dangerous. But when it comes to someone who's commuting like 3 or 5 miles to and from school or their house, etc., they may or may not choose to take their helmet with them because they have to carry it around. But so is there a state law prohibiting riding a bicycle or an electric bicycle on sidewalks? No, apparently there is no state law, but some local governments have local ordinances. We, the RGVMPO, have done an inventory of some bicycle and pedestrian policies within our boundaries, as we had shared. So I might find some of that and let you all know, or through a second training, which cities have which local ordinances. How many of you are aware of your city having a local ordinance specific for bike ped? No? Only because I used to work at the city of Brownsville. I know we have the safe passing one, but we have some other ones that are like engineering related. But I've never seen one related to prohibiting a bicycle or an electric vehicle, a bicycle on a sidewalk. The standard is typically, if it's 4 feet, it's for pedestrians and handicap users, right? The what are they called? Thank you. Wheelchair users. But if it's 8 feet, a sidewalk that's 8 feet or more is considered a multi-use path. And so the wider, that width, anything under 8 feet, mostly for pedestrians or wheelchair users, but 8 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet, 14 feet, those are multi-use paths, and so you should be allowing cyclists and pedestrians on those larger shared use paths. And so I think someone's here from UTRGV, and so those, they have like super wide sidewalks, and they are meant for cyclists and pedestrians. Okay, any pedestrians allowed to walk on the roadway or in a bike lane? A pedestrian may not, as most of you got correct, may not walk along or on a roadway if an adjacent sidewalk is provided and is accessible. Accessible is a key word there. Ramps or lack of ramps are a huge problem for our wheelchair users in our communities. You know as well as I do, we're a river delta where we have a lot of flooding, and a lot of that flooding creates cracks and issues on our sidewalks and our roadways in general. But this is something that, they are, if a sidewalk is not provided, a pedestrian walking along or on a highway shall, if possible, walk on the left side of the roadway or on the shoulder of the highway facing oncoming traffic. So that's something that I think my mom wanted me to ride against traffic, like my bicycle. And I was like, Mom, you're supposed to ride like with traffic. But that was something that I think a lot of people, especially maybe like older generations, they're used to walking against traffic. And that's what we want when they're walking against traffic. But when they move as a cyclist to go with the motorized vehicles, they should not be going opposite traffic. So when is it allowable for a cyclist to take the lane? A person operating a bicycle on a roadway who is moving slower than the other traffic on the roadway shall, as near as practical, go to that right curb or the edge of the roadway. Under the following conditions, bicyclists may take the full lane. And this was this was one of those questions we had. So if the person is passing another vehicle moving in the same direction, if the person is preparing to turn left at an intersection or on a private road or driveway, and then when there are unsafe conditions on the roadway, including fixed or moving objects, parked or moving vehicles, pedestrians, animals, surface hazards that prevent the person from safely riding next to the curb or edge of the roadway. So actually that makes me want to tell another story. Back in the day, I was biking on SH4, right? At least to Boca Chica Beach, Boca Chica Boulevard. And it's like 7 lanes. Before they built the median, it's like 3 lanes each direction and then a turn lane. And there were no shoulders, but there was some like patchy sidewalks, right? But there's a lot of commercial businesses. And so on this driveway, I'm biking on a 4-foot sidewalk, which I know in my heart I shouldn't, but it was safer than biking on the streets. So I'm biking on this 4-foot sidewalk with traffic, right? And there's a Whataburger up ahead, but there's like another there's a commercial vehicle, and there was like a loading or unloading vehicle. So they blocked my way to cross, right, to keep going, to continue. So I had to get off of the sidewalk take the lane to get back on the sidewalk. And I used my hand signals. I'm like, hey guys, I'm going into the lane, right? And I'm going to come back in. But there was some truck honking at me. And I was just like, okay, my bad. I'm going to get out of your way. And I get back on the sidewalk, and this guy goes to a Whataburger. And I'm like, it is 24/7. That restaurant is open 24/7, 7 days a week. And I was being, rushed to get back on that sidewalk. By the time I got to that Whataburger, he was getting out of his car. And I didn't say anything at all. But it's really, I feel like if you haven't been a cyclist or pedestrian, you're not used to these experiences, it's very easy to say that person shouldn't have been on the street. I know I shouldn't have been on the street, right? I know that. I didn't choose to be on the street. The situation put me on the street. And so that's just something that I want to share, because I think we have a lot more to do in motorist and cyclist education before we're at a point where we can cite either party for being at fault, right? But that's just one I wanted to say. So if that lane is substandard width, less than 14 feet, that's when it's unsafe for a bicycle or a motor vehicle to travel side by side. Let's see. When on a one-way street, a bicyclist can ride to the far left side instead of the far right. Additionally, persons operating bicycles on a roadway may ride 2 abreast. Persons riding 2 abreast on a laned roadway shall ride in a single lane instead of taking 2 lanes. I know that happens a lot in Palm Boulevard and some other areas. Persons riding two abreast may not impede the normal and reasonable flow of traffic. I promise you, I don't know a cyclist who is intentionally impeding traffic. They're all just trying to get from point A to point B, to my knowledge. I don't know anyone who goes out there and is like, I'm just going to go block traffic. But that's just something. So let's see. Do you have any questions? Everybody okay? All right, cool. When is a crash report required and when is it not? The operator of a vehicle, the bike, involved in an accident resulting in injury to or death of a person or damage to a vehicle to the extent that it cannot be normally and safely driven shall immediately, by quickest means of communication, give notice of the accident to local law enforcement. The law enforcement officer who in the regular course of duty investigates a motor vehicle accident shall make a written report of the accident if the accident resulted in injury or the death of a person or damage to the property. So that day that I got into an accident, where I just kind of like cleaned that person's car, you could very clearly see where it was a dirty car, so you could very clearly see where I cleaned it. I don't think, to my knowledge, that the law enforcement officer actually gave a charge. I think it was just a warning on both sides. It was a few years back, so my memory is not that great. But there was no damage. I wasn't severely injured, thankfully. And so that kind of helped there. But I'll also say International Boulevard is one of the few state roads that's 30 miles per hour. And I think it's because of how heavy the pedestrian and cyclist traffic is coming in and out of that international bridge. Oftentimes, these state roads are at least 40 miles per hour, if not more. And I see a lot of local roads actually that are 30 miles per hour when they could maybe be 25 or more reduced. And I like to get from point A to point B as quick as I can as well. So I'm not like the biggest fan when I see speed limits drop, because I'm like, the law enforcement are going to come after us when we're speeding. But I think for safety reasons and what we're seeing on a national and state trend is at least reducing some of those speeds in residential areas or obviously near schools and stuff, so that we can reduce some of these accidents and injuries. So you all got this one right. This one it seems like everybody knew this one. You make a crash report if there is damage to $1,000 or more. If it's not investigated and that property is still there, the operator of a motor vehicle involved in an accident shall make a written report of the accident. I thought that was interesting. I said, where do we file it? What do we do if that's the situation? But therefore, if no injury or death occurs and damage to the vehicle or bike is less than $1,000, a report would not be required. And so that individual who took care of me and was called, I'm still grateful that they called that back up and that somebody showed up to talk to the driver and to talk to myself, make sure I was okay too. I know he did do that. But it was not requiring a report. So my accident is not in the system, right? Which I think affects also how we learn as transportation planners and engineers. But additional requirements after accidents is if that, if they immediately stopped the vehicle at the scene, immediately return, the operator has a duty to give information and render aid. I don't think that person would have helped me. She definitely was not happy that she had to be staying back, as much as I was happy about being on the floor. But that being said, this kind of covers what I wanted to go over for bicycle and pedestrian laws and regulations. Do you have any specific questions regarding this information? Did you all already know this, or is this like a good refresher? Okay, I want to hear it, you guys. Affirmations work. Okay, let's see. What else do we got? Can you go back to the slides, please? Perfect. All right. Well, this link is this is bicycle pedestrian. This is bicycle specific. This isn't pedestrian. I'm not going to go over it. This is kind of like the bullet point. I think if you do see a cyclist that maybe doesn't understand the rules, Bike Texas is a good resource to send them to. This is, for me, like the bullet point synopsis is here. And so I'll send this out also as a link. But we had talked a lot about pedestrians. This site is more for cyclists. So that being said, I'm showing you some pictures here of some roadway improvements. We're going to get a little bit into the active transportation network and initiatives. And so this is really about on the ground initiatives. Here, if you're familiar, there's 3 vehicular lanes. I have so few photos from back when. But what we were doing, I was with the traffic director and a traffic engineer and another planner and then a consultant. But we put traffic cones there and did traffic counts to see if reducing that lane would impact traffic flow in that area. And so we studied it. We also did some campaigns. I'm talking about like 2015 or something. We did some campaigns putting out information like wait for cyclists to pass. But this was that before and after. This was that 3-way vehicular road. You can see that there's a sidewalk. It's very narrow. And what we did was what we call a road diet. That is when we remove one of the travel lanes in order to, 1, the capacity wasn't needed. We studied that. And then 2, we improved safety. This is like one of the most narrowest bike lanes, but right after this building, it gets wider and there become like protected barriers. But this is right next to the Gladys Porter Zoo. And that sidewalk, we utilized some of that space for a buffer. And we planted landscaping and trees also, obviously, in this heat. And because it's a cultural district for the city of Brownsville, that was a treatment that we as engineers, well, I'm not an engineer, as planners and engineers looked at. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say this now. I have a lot of information based in Cameron County, but because I worked more in Cameron County, and I'm just now working in Hidalgo County. So any photos, stuff that you have, please send them over. But this is a historic battlefield trail. This is the spine of Brownsville's network. It's 8.5 miles, and you can see all these intersections that it crosses. It's kind of hard to... I think I lose the light. But you see the intersections that it crosses where there's bus stops. It goes from the downtown district on the left to North Brownsville on the right. This is already like near 511, FM 511. So this traverses north and south as the spine of the city of Brownsville's network. And so, I saw some answers there where you're like, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure separated from traffic would help reduce fatalities, right? And in systems like this, those intersections are going to be the biggest safety hazard, right? On the trail, it's off-road, it's not adjacent to vehicles. We can improve safety, but those intersections are a pretty big deal. But I wanted to show a little bit of what we're planning. The city of Brownsville is working with the city of Los Fresnos to create a connection. And so if you're familiar with this area, that road right there is FM 1947, I want to say, Paredes Line Road. And so a lot of cyclists use that right now to bike, but it's heavily trafficked, it's high speed, there's always a lot of rubble and debris on the road. And so hopefully by utilizing some drainage infrastructure, we'll be able to transform that area for a safer off-road route and allow people to commute between communities through that. And so here's another regional project that we're looking at. That's on the left side. That's that Brownsville to Los Fresnos connection we were talking about. And then eventually, I'm talking about maybe 10 years from now, we are studying this route because it's historical and it's environmental to connect to Port Isabel and Laguna Vista. We've already done some public engagement, water, and shade are like some of the critical things that the community wants. Rest areas in between this route. The proposed route right now is about 20 miles. And so we're looking at more regional projects and we're looking at public infrastructure. What I didn't show here was this is National Park Service land. This is National U.S. Fish and Wildlife land. And we're hopefully utilizing some public drainage districts. So again, we're all public land managers. So if it's a public land, then we hope we can utilize some of that space to create some amenities for people to walk and bike and get off of the roadway and hopefully reduce those fatalities.
Is that available or is that on, do you have that? Or what is
The map, yeah, I can send it to you. Yeah. It's being planned. We did a feasibility study with Federal Highway Administration that was completed April 22, so I can send you the feasibility study. But we just applied for $10 million to build a section of it with U.S. Fish contributing $1.5 million. So a lot of that is partnership based, right? We have multiple jurisdictions. Some of it's going to be Cameron County. Some of it's going to be Port Isabel. Some of it's going to be Brownsville, blah, blah, blah. And so negotiating all of those maintenance agreements and construction agreements and all that That's some of the work that we help facilitate, but it's going to take a lot more to get done. But the good news is everyone's on the table. The feasibility study really helps us like understand what our budget is and what we need. And so here's another extension. If you're familiar with the Harlingen area, this is the Harlingen Arroyo Trail. It's known for its mountain biking trails, but it really does cover a large part of the city. Like if you've ever, I feel like the drive would take a while, and so that bike ride, it's completely off-road. It's on the arroyo. If it floods, though, that trail is gone, but temporarily, right? It's not always flooded. And so the city of Harlingen has applied to the Valley Baptist Legacy Foundation to get an extension, and they're currently under construction for that purple extension that you see there. I mean, and Harlingen, again, is huge, but I feel like every mile counts. Every mile counts when it comes to this off-road infrastructure. And I think what we need to do a better job of is promoting the infrastructure we have. That's kind of why I wanted to inform law enforcement officers about the infrastructure, but because of that. So I can see we're already like at 4:08, so let me speed it up. But this is the Harlingen to San Benito connection. You can see that San Benito has a trail here. We're hoping to plan that. It's a little bit further behind the Bahia Grande trail. The international boundaries and water, but opening up waterways in general is really good for mental health and physical activity and encouraging people to be outdoors, ecotourism, that kind of stuff. And then here's the favorite one for Hidalgo County. This is Precinct 2 Hike and Bike Trail. And so this is connecting the cities of McAllen, Far, and San Juan. And I'm just tapping into the Hidalgo County plans, like I've said, but this uses, again, drainage infrastructure. It's going underneath roadways, which is a huge investment, but ultimately much, much, much safer for cyclists and pedestrians. And so with that, I want to go to, I want to show you our website. The staff and I are working with our Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee for this active transportation facility inventory. We have an active transportation plan. We have some data on off-street trails and on-street facilities. And so it is incomplete, much like I'm trying to standardize some of the crash reporting here. I'm trying to standardize some of the data that we're getting for facilities. And so what we don't have is like the surface material. Is it asphalt? Is it concrete? Is it caliche? And then what is the width? Is it 6 feet? Is it 8 feet? Is it, 12 feet? And this is just to determine, better numbers. On the on-street facility, we're like, is it a protected bike lane? Is it to and from? Is it a bike lane, a share row? How many of you know what a share row is? A share row is a shared use lane. And so what they do is they put these arrows where motor vehicles can drive, but it still alerts the motor vehicle that cyclists might be present and taking up that full lane. It's really only recommended as a treatment for like low traffic volumes and for low speed limits. But this is something we're building now. I'm just going to show you the website that we're building, and I'll send this link too. But this is the map that we have. And so you can see in the McAllen-Edinburgh area, our layers are over here. Off-street is in orange. On-street are bike facilities. And I think you can add additional layers here, like here's sidewalks, here's our MAB boundary. We kind of haven't been playing with the sidewalks so much because it's so much data. But if you do find cyclists and pedestrians that are interested in this information, we'd love to keep them all on bike lanes and out of the road. But you can see here, we have large gaps to fill in the active transportation network. Brownsville is one of the most connected communities. I'm sorry, I'm like choking. But it's basically just more infrastructure is needed overall. And hopefully before I retire, we'll be connecting more communities by walking and biking. So I wanted to show that as a resource. It's not finished. I wouldn't say it's a complete inventory. It's an initiative that we're working under. And then again, we program millions of dollars in funding. And so ignore this, but this 3.29 million, we programmed about 3.2 million last year. We have about 9.5 million to build this coming year. Some of them are plans, so not all of these will result in infrastructure. But you can see maybe your community's on here: Far, McAllen, Los Fresnos, Elsa, Harlingen. And so hopefully in the next coming year, we're going to program about $6 million in infrastructure. So again, if you find intersections or roadways where you need to get people off of them, just let me know, and we're looking for that. So I'm just going to spend the last 10 minutes, I can do this pretty quickly, on public health and demographic data. So this is the social determinants of health based on the CDC. And so 10% of your public health is based on your physical environment. That's the infrastructure we just talked about. But 40% is socioeconomic factors, 20% is access to care, health care, and then 30% is health behavior, tobacco use, diet and exercise, etc. And so in our communities, I'm looking, at Cameron County specifically, this is old data from 2018. We just look completely different than the United States and Texas. We have 22% persons under 18 for the United States, and in the Cameron County, it's 30%. Hidalgo County has similar statistics. For high school graduation, for Hispanic, like 18% of the United States population is Hispanic. Cameron County has 89.7%. And so this really impacts when you look at social determinants of health and you look at our statistics. This is why we have such high rates of diabetes. And we're looking at, broadband internet. How many people have internet that can access the resources I've been sharing with you? I didn't have internet till I was 25, and I'm 34. So recently. And I'm just persons in poverty, that's a huge one. That's one that we talk about. And I think one of the reasons why we have a lot of cyclists and pedestrians who maybe aren't as informed. But we're 5 of the counties with the highest poverty rates. We have a high poverty level, more than 40%. 80% of our population is overweight or obese. 1 in 3 are diabetic. And that is staggering because nationally, 1 in 3 people are projected to be diabetic in 2050. And Cameron County, or the RGV, actually, this data is regional, is already there at 1 in 3. So I know people with diabetes, and I actually just lost a friend. She amputated her foot and then her leg, and she ultimately lost her her life to complications due to diabetes. And we have the highest rates of amputations due to diabetes in the nation, not just the state of Texas, in the nation. And so over 60% of our population is uninsured. We have high rates of cardiovascular disease and all kinds of other infectious diseases. We lack public hospitals, median schools. We just lack that access to healthcare facilities, right? And we just have high rates of morbidity and mortality in the state. So when you see people walking and biking, please don't assume they want to be there. They probably don't want to bike in this heat, in this humidity, against the wind, in this rain. You know what I mean? So it's for individuals who are getting to and from places they need to be, or maybe don't have other means of transportation available to them. And we go back, this is about programming, work with your schools, with your partners. I'm hopeful that, this hopefully inspires you to provide more education or to think more about cyclists and pedestrian. I know you all as law enforcement have so much to do and to learn about and to address, but there are programs, there are activities. This is from 2017, 2018, people need to increase their levels of physical activity, and there are ways that you can work with your police department. This is an old, to put a campaign together for your community. Just a suggestion, something that has been done before. This is the Cameron County-wide plan that we kind of got some of these projects together for. Hidalgo County is not currently, but we're about to kick off maybe towards the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, a similar plan for all of Cameron County. So everything in blue is on street. It's a big loop around the county. And then everything in red is off street. And then you even have those green routes, which are kayaking trails. This plan, just side note, it wants to connect a World Birding Center on South Padre to a World Birding Center in Harlingen, which I think is super exciting. Okay, those are the maps separately. That's that national corridor map. This is supposed to be like a national highway for cyclists, basically. And that's that kayaking route. Oops. So economics, if you like numbers, I just want to say like this Great Allegheny Passage, it was a huge 4-state trail, cost $80 million to complete. It now generates $100 million annually in annual spending. The same thing for $400 million in economic activity annually for the state of Oregon. These aren't just, transportation, but also recreation. Paddling itself is $55 million from this North Carolina coastal plains. That's just a side note. But looking at this plan for infrastructure and then looking at physical activity levels based on some School of Public Health data, they found that in Brownsville, at least, this was based on the data from there, people who live near trails exercise 22% more than people who do not. And so if we can build 291 miles of trails and routes in our community, we can potentially save our community $6 to $12 million a year in annual healthcare costs. So I don't know about you. I have a lot of family members that have like 24 tias and tios and 36 cousins. And, they all have kids. And so like there's a huge potential here to help our family, our friends. And so again, this is a comprehensive approach. We're working with transit, we're working with the other highway projects, but this is part of our active transportation plan, which goals are connectivity, accessibility, and community health. Some of this is about law enforcement training and our safety strategy over here, ordinance enforcement, Vision Zero. But I want to it's about safety, it's about transportation, it's about recreation, but it's economic tool as well. So this is a bait shop near Rio Hondo, but if they could get some economic assistance to cater to cyclists and pedestrians and paddlists, there's potential to expand business opportunities in our region by improving our active transportation network. And so with that, I release thee. Any questions? Thank you. All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, Melanie and Javier and our team over here has done a great job of setting aside bike lights and helmets for you all. And so I'll just share. All we need you to do is sign in. They're all kind of separated. What you see here is the 2 big boxes have 20 helmets each. You're going to get different sizes. That smaller box on top of the 2 big boxes will be 10 helmets from toddlers, like for babies, smaller kids. And then on the very top, thank you. And then those are either 200 bike lights that way or 200 bike lights the other way with that singular box. And so basically each one of the agencies is getting a set, and all we ask is that hopefully you can help us just get some names if you distribute them. Get some names, zip code. We have here a thing for lights and helmets. However many you distribute, you can just put one name, and let's say you gave 5 helmets and 5 bike lights to a family. We'll take that one name and 5 and 5. But we need this for grant reporting purposes. So I'll follow up with you. We have a signature form, and y'all can just come up one by one to get them. Oh, we can go by each agency. Okay, thank you. Okay, who's with Joe Hernandez? RGV, please. All right, you come up first. Select your station. Thank you for completing your training. I'll probably email you all like a survey of what I could do better, what you already knew, what you didn't know. That's helpful for me. I like constructive criticism because, like I said, I want to be here year after year, and I don't want to give you the same stuff. I want to do better next time. So with that, I feel like let me just get you all to sign in. Yeah, I feel like, just come up. It's going to be one by one. I'll get the signature. Just come see me on your way out so I can get you to sign for them. Thank you all for joining us live on Facebook.